Thank you for joining us for yet another episode of the Disruptive Voices of the Pacific. This podcast exists to talk about many of the topics that we don't always talk about here in the Pacific, but that are just so important. And right now we are doing a series on sex, dating, relationships and everything in between. We are working on a book project that will hopefully come out next year, but we are filming some of these podcasts just as a bit of a taster, but to help you, your family, your children, whoever is listening. And again, my favourite, we're back joined again by Richie. Welcome, Richie.
Thank you for having me here.
For those of us who are tuning in for the first time, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Pulvinaka, my name is Richie Yangomate. I'm from Vanua-Levu, South Savu, with maternal links to Coral Island. And I'm married for 8 years now to an amazing wife, Martha, who I know is watching all the episodes so far. But she's just been a blessing.
Yeah, yep. You've done well there, but you've ended well by finding a great wife. But you had a bit of a rocky start, and go back and listen to the previous episodes, the mistakes he's made, the porn addiction you've been through, the way you've treated girls. You haven't always been this amazing man. So today we're discussing, what do we do if we have messed up? Is there hope? And quite often we think it's the end of the world at the time. A young woman finds out she's pregnant. My goodness, what am I going to do? A young boy has messed up. And because I find a lot of the preaching, particularly that comes out of the church, it can be quite condemning
That's right.
and a bit judgmental. It's not doesn't make me want to run to my pastor as a sinner and get help. But Jesus isn't like that. Jesus ran to the prodigal son, didn't he? He runs to us in our sin and our shame. So maybe talk us through, Richie. I mean, you talked in an early episode about losing your virginity. What were you feeling after that? Because you were a pastor's son in the church. Were you thinking, oh my goodness, I've just ruined everything?
Yeah, so when I lost my virginity, I felt disgusted. I felt so bad, because a typical pastor's kid has got to be like the holiest of holy and the saints of all of them. But I just felt so bad, and because I felt so bad, and I felt like, I can't get it back. So what the heck? Let's just go all out.
Yeah.
And I just kept going down that journey of just making more messes and just doing things without thinking, and just trying to, because of, I think deep down in my unconscious, I just felt so bad, and I just started to suppress it by doing other things that just made more mess, and I just didn't really, to be honest, I just didn't like who I was. Even to the point where I never told people at uni that I was a pastor's kid. I never told anyone. My first introduction, when I met someone, people would then find out and then look back and say, hey, you didn't say you were a pastor's kid? And I'd turn back and I'd say, oh, I didn't know it was part of the criteria of me telling you that I was a pastor's kid. But I just didn't want to tell people, because I was just ashamed. Ashamed of the things that I've done, ashamed of the things that I've committed, and I just, all of a sudden, I just wanted to show people that it was all good. But deep down, it was like termites eating wood.
Yeah, and that's the problem, isn't it? Because we feel the shame. We look around and think everyone's life's perfect.
That's right.
Who am I going to tell? How damaging is holding on to that shame?
Yeah. It does a lot of damage. Because deep inside you, everyone sees the outside, but you yourself know what's happening inside of you. And when you go back home, you'd beat yourself up. You'd hate yourself. And I'm just grateful that I didn't go to the extent of maybe self-harming, or maybe going, resorting to drugs and alcohol. But I know that there are people that would have resorted to that because of the shame that there is. And one of the things that I really feel in the Fijian culture, which is we get so the first thing when something happens, we think about what will auntie say, what will uncle say, because of the shame that's there. All of a sudden we try to hide it and we just try to keep it within, but it really eats us from inside, and it affects everything. It affects our relationships that we have with others, and all of a sudden maybe I came to a point where I just didn't want to go to any church events. I didn't want to mingle with other people. At times I didn't want to go to events that would happen during the day. I just wanted to go to night events, just because I didn't want people to see me, and it just started affecting every areas of my life.
Yeah. So at what point, when did you finally decide to speak about it? Or
I think most of these things happened. I started to watch what was happening within my family, growing up. And because I realized when you don't talk about things, there's a likelihood of it reoccurring again within your family. And when I started to become when I started to work with young people, I worked with an organization called Really Med. And I was just being observant about all these things that's happening. And then I saw what was happening within our church and within the community. And I started to realize, you know what, I can't be silent anymore. When I think it was in the moment when I started to have a relationship with my wife, because I would say to myself, I can't speak about something if I haven't tried it out yet. So the first thing I tried to do was, when I met with my wife, when I saw her, I said to myself, I'm never going to go out with her. But I did say to myself, but if I get an opportunity to, I'll make sure that everything that I've done, I wouldn't do it with her. So I started to practice it with my wife, like the way that I would treat her, the way that I would be open to her. And I started to tell her everything that I've done, even with my past relationships. And even to the point where I knew that if it would change the way she perceived me or saw me, but I just wanted to be open about it with her. And I felt like when I was open with her, it made our relationship even stronger. It didn't change the way that she looked at me, or she didn't see me and, oh, you did this, you did that. But it just made our relationship even much more stronger than what it was. So I think for me, my turning point was when I started to date my wife and started to be open about it. When we got married, I said to her, we got to start talking about these things. And I think for me personally, because we got married and then we started talking about it, it made our conversation effective with young people and everyone else around us.
Yep. So you work with a lot of young people. If a 16-year-old teenage girl came to you and said, I'm pregnant, how would you respond?
I would look at it and I would say, how do you feel about it first? You know? And but I would tell her this is not the end of the world. I would even share with her the story of how my sisters went through it, you know? Because I definitely know that that 16-year-old would be having some shame, definitely regret, you know? And they would be going through a process where they're thinking, I wish I could go back and do it differently. But them coming to me and sharing it with me shows that they trust me, and number two, it's because no one else is able to love on them. And I feel like the only thing that we're called to do is love on people, not judge them. And but to be able just to say that this is not the end of it, you know. But the journey forward means we get to do life differently, you know. Now you're going to start to think about looking after a little you that's going to be coming up.
Yeah.
But making sure that we guide them along the journey and giving them the skills and helping them make the right choices of not redoing it again, you know. Because I believe that if a young person comes to me and shares with me the fact that they are pregnant, and I believe that they will be a good person to use their voice to reach out to other young people coming up.
That's really important. And so it's, you know, if you are carrying secrets,
Yeah.
shame, things that you've never told anyone, the first step when you've messed up is to actually go find a trusted person.
That's right.
That's really important because, like Richie said, you're just going to continue to repeat these cycles. You'll pass it down to your children. Those who believe in the devil, he'll get a stronghold. There will be consequences to our actions. There always are, but there's always hope. And it's not the end of the world. So find a trusted person, speak up.
Right.
If you're a Christian, yes, pray, repent, but then get on with life. Your life is not over. But keep finding people that you can walk with and who will help you. Let's just talk about the church a little bit. How can the church be more accepting so those who are struggling want to go and get help? Where do we think we need to change?
I think first and foremost, we've got to drop all our religious stuff, all our religious thoughts. And a lot of the times when people come up, and I'd say to my wife, we don't even have to say anything back. They're just coming to unload. All we got to do is just love on them and hug them and make them feel like that they belong. I think that's the first and foremost thing that the church needs to. I feel like that's what we're trying to do at church, at home. The first thing that we did was we tried to make it not church, but we started to call it home. So at our church services now, we don't say welcome to church, we say welcome home. Because you know how that saying is, there's no place like home. Because we know that if they mess up, they'll just want to come back home.
Yeah.
So we want to portray church, not church, but home. A place where you can come back to when there's home, even a place where you could mess up, you know. And we're trying to get people that are there mainly just to love, because that's what we're called to do. We're just called to love on people, you know. The moment that we start trying to dictate their lifestyle, you're judging them. I think the best stance for us as a church, or even as leaders, is just to love on people, you know. And that's what God said. He just said, love God and love your neighbors as you love yourself.
Yeah.
Those are the two greatest commandments. Yeah. And if we just do what God's called us to do and we let God be the judge, I think would be seeing more people healed, more people transformed, more people discipled, and sending them out again to disciple others.
I mean, my opinion always rises of someone when they come and share their struggles with me. I never think any less of them because who doesn't struggle?
That's
I mean,
right.
it's just a lie that we've all got our life together. So the minute someone shares with me, I just instantly think, man, you have so much courage.
Yep.
And it's the listening, it's the loving, but then sometimes they do need a bit of help too.
Yep.
And there's services that you can refer them to. Whatever it is, because I don't have all the answers, but just leading and guiding them, hey, is so important. But man, what a difference if we could, not just with our churches, but our families too. You know, do we talk about these issues? Do our kids know that they can tell us anything?
That's right.
Or are they going to go and have an abortion to try and cover up their sins? And so let's create families where we can discuss these issues. So the good news is, if we've messed up, it's not the end of the world.
That's right.
Everyone messes up. It's all a part of life.
Yep.
I heard a preacher say, make the biggest mess you want, but be prepared to clean it up.
That's right.
Which always involves confessing,
Yep.
repenting.
Yep.
But get back on with life.
That's right.
Is so important. So, Richie, thank you again for your wisdom.
Thank you.
You've been amazing, and hope today has encouraged you a little bit. We'll catch you again.
Cheers.